Welcome to Krystal Rowe Impact, a space dedicated to empowering you to be the change that your bloodline has been waiting for. Join me and together, let's inspire change. Kia ora whanau and welcome to the Krystal Rowe Impact podcast. And today we're going to be talking about embracing vulnerability. And I'm going to share a story about the first time I was vulnerable to social media through my business. And it was back in the time where we had this amazing global pandemic and everything just shut down. And at the time, I was a single mom with 7 kids at home trying to start up my business. And it had only been about 8 months before this global pandemic started to kick in, and I freaked out. I didn't know what was happening. I was ignoring all the signs until I went to the supermarket and I couldn't buy anything because there was nothing there. And then everything was limited and it was crazy. And everything was just this like hurricane of a season just unfolding within a really short period of time. And what happened for me and my family is that we went into isolation, probably just like most people, and I shut the doors to my business. And through that time, my real estate actually said that we could go on this like government grant where they paid 30% and the rest of the balance, as long as I paid my outgoings, which was like $100 for the month, we would be able to worry about that once this global pandemic had passed and everything would be fine. However, things shifted within that real estate, and then a new lady came in and she literally demanded $7,000 in 7 days, and I just freaked out. I had no dollars to my name. I had 7 children that I had to take care of while we were still locked up at home. And I just had no idea what to do. And I rang one of my best friends and I said to him, "This is what they're telling me. I'm going to lose my shop. What am I going to do?" And he literally said to me, "You need to get your face on your socials and tell everybody what's happening. Become vulnerable, be real, and ask for help." And I thought to myself, how the heck am I going to do that? I cannot be seen by the public eye. I cannot share my failure. I can't share my debt. I can't share where I'm at. And maybe my pride got in the way or whatever you want to call it. But I took a moment and I was so distraught and I thought, you know what? I need help. So I did. I did a live and I did a flyer that was a fundraiser. And I said that I am just going to cook for 3 days straight, show up and buy everything that you can from me. And I am just going to continue to cook until I can come up with this money. And the beautiful thing of the vulnerability that I shared and I allowed myself to be seen was people really showed up for me. Strangers, I remember opening the doors thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Still anticipating the worst. And I had a beautiful old lady walk up to my counter and she had an envelope on it and there was nothing written on it. And I opened it up and it had a little card with a butterfly on it and it said, "You're doing great." And it had $100 in it. And from there, it just carried on. People were showing up. They were purchasing food and, they were leaving their tips or like they were leaving their change. And before you knew it, day 2 rolled in and there were just people showing up left, right, and center. And it was because I was able to be vulnerable and say, you know what? I'm not okay. I need help. And in order to save the Cuzzies Cafe, I need to show you that things aren't okay. And what that taught me as well in that moment was it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. And when we actually show up in our most vulnerable state, our most authentic state, that's where the magic happens, and that's where the growth actually takes place. And cutting to the chase, I did actually manage to cook $7,000 worth of food within like 2.5 days, and we raised the money to pay the real estate. And as lovely as she was once I paid for it, it was just such an amazing experience. My first experience of being truly vulnerable, not just so much on social media, but with myself as well, and being able to give myself permission to be vulnerable in that situation allowed others to as well. It actually allowed so many more people to say, you know what, this global pandemic has really been hard for me, and I'm not okay. And from that, the support that I received trickled out into the community as well. And people were able to show up for all types of people, all types of situations and experiences. So that was the beauty that came from my experience of embracing vulnerability, and actually being able to set that example for my children too, to say, you know what, when you don't feel okay, it's okay to show it. It's okay to be vulnerable in a safe space. And it's okay to be seen, and it's okay to be heard when we're not feeling great. And I think that's the most important lesson that I've learned, is that it's a normal. It's normal to feel. It's normal to feel all kinds of emotions, whether they're good or bad. We're allowed to, if we give ourselves permission to embrace and be consumed by our feelings so that we can share our true authentic self. And that's the beauty of being vulnerable, is that we get to be our true authentic self and show that side. My biggest takeaway from being vulnerable is that it's normal to feel, and it's normal to express, and it's normal to be truly authentic in our feelings, no matter what they are. So I encourage you today to find yourself in your most vulnerable state, share with somebody that's close to you, and just embrace being vulnerable. Feel the power, feel the empowerment of becoming vulnerable with yourself and with others. So it's so beautiful when we actually give ourselves permission to embrace the vulnerability that we can feel sometimes. Sometimes we want to shy away from it, from social or cultural limiting beliefs. The don't say that, don't do that, don't look this way. But when we actually give ourselves permission to be our true authentic self, it's operating from the most vulnerable space. And that's where the magic really happens, where the growth happens. When we start to show our true self and be vulnerable in the presence of others, we actually inspire others to do the same. We're actually giving others the permission to become vulnerable. We're giving others the permission to feel, and we're actually changing the trajectory of society and allowing it to be okay to not be okay. We're allowing feelings to be normal and vulnerability to be accepted. Thank you so much for listening to the Krystal Rowe Impact podcast. Make sure that you leave a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and make sure you're following all our social media platforms. And I will see you on the next episode.